Welcome back, math educators, to another Learn Rising Star Math Explainer. Let's just jump right in, shall we? Today, we are unpacking a massive shift in instructional strategy. We're talking about how to stop grading every single mistake and start using assessment as a real-time compass. You know, if you've ever felt like you're literally drowning in grading, or you've handed back a stack of math tests only to watch your students immediately flip to the final grade, completely ignore all your helpful notes, and just shove it into the black hole of their backpacks, well, this explainer is exactly what you need.
All right, here's our game plan for today. First, the real-time learning compass. 2, 3 common assessment pitfalls. 3, the formative classroom toolkit. And finally, a new assessment mindset. Let's get to it.
Section 1, the real-time learning compass. We're kicking things off by fundamentally shifting how we view those numbers sitting in our math gradebooks. We really need to rethink what assessment actually does for our students, especially right in the middle of a messy, complicated math lesson.
So, let's look at the core paradigm shift we need to make here. On one side, we've got assessment of learning. This is what we traditionally know, right? Summative tests, final grades, terminal events that honestly stand completely separate from the actual instruction. But on the flip side, we have assessment for learning. This acts as a formative feedback loop embedded directly within your teaching. It treats math mistakes not as penalties, but as a completely natural and required part of cognitive growth. So, to put it simply, assessment of learning is a final verdict, whereas assessment for learning is a continuous, growth-focused loop.
I found this metaphor from a WooClap guide incredibly helpful. They describe formative assessment as a real-time compass. Just think about that for a second. Rather than waiting for a big summative test at the end of Chapter 4 to magically reveal that half your class doesn't understand fractions, when it's way too late to actually do anything about it, this compass allows us to constantly course correct. It gives us immediate, actionable insights to shape exactly what we're going to do in our classroom tomorrow morning.
Section 2, 3 common assessment pitfalls. Let's see how this compass idea helps us identify the major roadblocks that standard grading systems honestly just force us into and why they can sometimes fail our math students.
Research highlights 3 massive pitfalls that can completely halt student progress when we rely way too heavily on traditional summative grading. We're going to dive into feedback as judgment, assessment as a one-time event, and one-way feedback. Now, if any of these sound a little too familiar, don't worry at all. We are going to fix them.
First up is feedback as judgment. Instructional methods from SASCOR and a Learniverse blog both point out a pretty hard truth. Simply slapping a C+ or a generic good job on a math worksheet gives students absolutely zero guidance on how to actually improve. It just judges their current state. I mean, if a student messed up a complex algebraic equation, a letter grade doesn't tell them if they completely misunderstood the distributive property or if they just dropped the negative sign. It totally fails to move their learning forward because it provides absolutely no actionable path.
The second pitfall, one-time assessment. As noted in a really fascinating article by ASCD, treating assessment like some dramatic, high-stakes terminal event at the end of a unit misses the crucial opportunity to keep students confident day by day. When we do this, assessment stops being a tool for learning. It essentially becomes an autopsy of what they didn't learn. Learning math should be a series of interlaced experiences that shape daily growth, definitely not a sudden cliff they fall off every 3 weeks.
And the third pitfall is one-way feedback. Research from PSSR points out a really interesting dynamic here. Keeping all the assessment power in the teacher's hands creates a one-way street. Basically, when you're the only one holding the red pen, you completely sideline the student from their own collaborative learning cycle. They're just sitting back waiting for you to tell them if they're smart or not. We absolutely need to actively involve them in the process.
Section 3, the formative classroom toolkit. All right, we've seen the traps, so let's open up a highly practical, low-lift toolkit you can literally use in tomorrow's math lesson to turn that one-way street into a dynamic feedback loop.
Technique number 1 is the classic exit ticket. According to strategies from Learning Mole and Study.com, exit tickets are incredibly powerful because they are quick and super low stakes. In just a few minutes before the bell rings, you ask one targeted question about the core objective of the day. Students jot down their answer, you collect them, and boom, instantly you have immediate data. And here's the kicker. You don't grade these for the gradebook. You use them to decide your plan for the very next day. Do we need to review this concept? Do a few students need some scaffolding, or is the whole class ready to advance?
Moving on to technique number 2, upfront success criteria. Third-Space Learning in a Rahoo CPD course strongly advocate for this really simple acronym, WILF, which stands for What I'm Looking For. You share explicit learning intentions and success criteria right at the start of the lesson. It completely demystifies success. So, instead of a student sitting there wondering what you want, you just tell them point blank. YALF, I am looking for you to line up your decimals, and I am looking for you to show your carryover work. This allows students to self-assess their own math problems as they work, which keeps them on track in real time.
Technique number 3 is structured peer feedback. When we look at the 2 stars and a wish structure detailed by the curriculum tool in Let's Talk Science, the ratio is actually really fascinating. It's 67% positive to 33% constructive. When students give peer feedback, they highlight 2 specific strengths, those are the stars, and 1 actionable area for improvement, the wish. By intentionally weighting the feedback toward the positive, the student receiving it is way more receptive to the suggestion. It's a real game changer.
But guys, here is the secret sauce for making peer feedback actually work in a math class. Both those stars and the wish must tie directly back to the upfront success criteria, the WILF we just talked about. By ensuring peers reference those specific criteria, the feedback becomes objective, not personal. A student might say, "Star, you used the correct formula, just like the criteria asked." Wish, I wish you had remembered to write the final unit of measurement, which was also in our willful list. It totally takes the pressure off and turns your students into highly effective coaches for one another.
Section 4. A new assessment mindset. Okay, we've seen the pitfalls and we've unpacked the practical tools. Let's tie it all together into a fresh philosophy for your classroom. Because this isn't just about changing your grading rubrics, right? It's about changing the entire culture of your math class.
It's so fascinating to see this concept laid out by the curriculum tool. Standard grading shouldn't feel like a verdict. It should feel like a mirror. When you use formative tools like exit tickets, WILF, and 2 stars and a wish, you keep failure from becoming chronic in the minds of your learners. And ASCD research points out that is absolutely vital for student confidence. Assessment simply becomes a mirror, reflecting their current progress, showing them exactly where they are and exactly what steps to take next, rather than a judge banging a gavel on their final worth.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to look at your upcoming math unit and ask yourself this critical question. Is your feedback acting as a mirror for student growth, or is it just a final verdict? Remember, use your assessments to navigate, not just to score. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.